Hey guys, this is David Vobora, retired NFL linebacker, the founder of the Adaptive Training Foundation. I'm here with my man, producer, engineer, Greg Lackey, who is an amazing talent. And guys, we're bringing you some conversations with people in our lives that we feel like have a message to share. You know, they may not be prolific platform influencers like some of the internet is just always interested in, but I think there's a lot of meat and a lot of value in what we unpack with these conversations. There's long form audio, there's some snippets and cuts for some video included as well. But this first conversation we're releasing is with a great buddy of mine, my best friend actually here in Dallas. You know him as Si Chavez, Kidd Kraddick Morning Show host, nationally syndicated 106.1, KISS FM, incredibly wildly successful in the entertainment business, and yet the guy that I spoke to is my buddy Jose. And you're gonna get to know the real Jose Chavez, not JC, right? As a persona and on-air personality, you hear this voice on the radio and you're like, that's JC, he's gotta be like that all the time. But what you get in this conversation is the real root, the grit, the below the surface stuff about some of the things that he struggled, both in his childhood, in his just adult life that has carried with him. So Lack, man, what for you resonated? And why do you think people are going to be touched by these words that we shared?
Man, I think, I use the term accessible. The guy's accessible. He's very honest. He's transparent. Yeah. There's no way that you could sit and have a conversation with him and think that the guy is anything less than just 100% genuine. Yeah. And he puts it all out there. And almost it's like, it's not that he doesn't care what you think, it's just that he understands that that's who he is. That's his story. He owns it, and it's what shaped him and made him into the man that he is today, and what he does with it. So, man, it was hands down. We've recorded a handful of these. We're getting ready to release them. I mean, it's sitting on top for me right now.
Yeah, it's powerful. I think that's the point. Is if you didn't know him, the way he presented himself, you'd feel like, man, I want to go to battle with this guy. I want to do something with this guy because he'd have my back, right? And I'd easily have his. He's a likable guy, but you can tell it's sincere. And the power that I think is in his story comes from a mess. And I think that he had never had the permission to share that in an on-air setting with such confidence. Him and I share some things in our background, and I think he felt a supreme confidence in a friend that knew I was asking the questions because it was going to help a lot of people, rather than it was just something that was, trying to poke at a persona. I think when you can Google somebody and figure out all the things that they have and that they're about, but you can't get to the root of who that person is. And that's what I asked him. I opened the podcast and closed the podcast with, who is Jose? And for you mentioned to me about his conversation with his kids, like really his relationship with his kids and his family. Because he didn't have that with his parents. No. What stuck with you in that realm? The family stuff.
I mean, you could go back to just, the genuineness of it. This dude just wants nothing more for his kids to be loved. When they think about who he is, it's a dad who loved him. When you take that into, in light of his story, it makes sense, right?
Sure.
But man, you can just see that the dude cares. The dude absolutely cares. Yeah. And it's not about the persona. It's not about the fame or the success or whatever it is. It's about that relationship.
Yeah. I love walking the streets with this guy because especially Dallas-Fort Worth, he gets stopped like all the time. Oh, picture. And he's so cordial. And you know what? It's not even just like checking about, oh yeah, I'm going to be friendly and take the picture and get on with my day. He genuinely wants them to remember something about that experience. It isn't just the picture. He wants to say something to them, talk to them, like look them in their eyes and have this moment. And I think of like amazing people that I've met that were real people that weren't just this persona of what I expected. Like Will Smith was someone that I got to hang with at a movie premiere once. And it was that. It was like, I knew him as Fresh Prince and this movie person, but he was like a dude wanting to talk ball. And that's how I think Jose is deep down.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's going to give. He's going to outgive you any day. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he is.
He is. You can't say he's doing it for anything else other than that.
Yeah. Yeah, would last.
It was solid.
Well, listen, guys, I hope you're touched by this. My ask of you is if you're listening to this content, it's touched you in some way, just comment, share it. I'd love to correspond with you to hear what resonated, what stuck, and what speaks to you, and maybe what it's done for you. because I know it's done a lot for me. It's no small thing when we carve out time to have these deep conversations, because they're therapy, they're treatment for the people that are expressing them. I think that I'd encourage anybody that's listening to take the ownership to share their narrative as proof that they're willing to go beyond it. At the Adaptive Training Foundation, we provide cost-free training for people with physical disabilities that have had traumatic injuries, like getting blown up in war or getting in a car accident or suffering a stroke. And we are often and consistently encouraging them to lead with the thing that they feel like is the disadvantage or the discrediting factor, that limiting factor, because that's their quality that makes them unique. That's their superpower. And when we can suddenly look at those things, the perspective of them shifts, and we realize that the weakness is actually a strength, and if we use it well, it can bring the sum of all parts of us to value to somebody else. So that's why we're doing it. We'd love to hear from you. Hopefully you're touched by this conversation, and we got more coming. So, Dave Vobora, founder of Adaptive Training Foundation, here at the gym with my man, Si Chavez, Kidd Kraddick Morning Host. And I mean this very genuinely, not just one of my best friends, but one of the best human beings that I know.
Appreciate it, man.
And honestly, the way you live your life, the way that you use your platform, the community that you've built, and the way that you help people is just, honestly, and I hear this word a lot with the work that we do with adaptive athletes. Oh, it's an inspiration. But like, dude, you aspire to be a better human every day and touch somebody in a really significant way. So what I'd love to get into today is a little bit about your background, right? Because you were born in Mexico City, right? And childhood and child life was not easy for you.
No.
So talk about, I mean, you've overcome, and I think that here's what I want to do. Like, I want you to be willing and able to go to those areas and to talk the truth of what happened, because there's somebody listening to this, there's some kid, there's somebody else that doesn't feel like they're going to amount to anything because they don't have the privileges of the kids at their school. Right. And I know that you grew up literally fighting for everything that you earned. And maybe just talk about what it was to be of Mexican descent and to come to the United States, and then some of the issues with your family and whatnot growing up.
So, ever since I was a kid, I automatically felt like I didn't fit in. My mom was a teenager when she got pregnant. Yeah. Later on in my life, I found out later on that my father had walked away. He didn't want anything to do with me. He let go of everything, and so he was not in my life. So I was born to a teenager and who was thinking about not fulfilling the pregnancy, obviously because of religious beliefs. In Mexico, a lot of people are Catholic. Right. She decided to go with it. She thought, once you feel life in your stomach, she thought it was just wrong. So she had me. My grandmother was the person she lived with. My grandmother was a very angry woman. Her husband had cheated on her and basically started another family with another woman. And so they had 3 kids. So I was constantly reminded of what a bad man is like by my grandmother based on what he did for her. And I felt like I didn't fit in because I was a blonde kid in a low income part of Mexico City. Yeah. Now looking the way I did, if I was in the rich part of Mexico, I would have totally fit in, but I didn't look like the other kids. And so it was hard for me to make friends. Right. It was hard for me to fit in. Yeah. A lot of the kids, when I started going to school, I went to a private school because my mom figured out that if she became a teacher, she could get me a free education. And so she got me into a private school. And so some of those kids had money. And I started realizing how important money was around that time, because these kids would talk about their weekend homes and their weekend getaways, and they had the nice dress shoes, and I remember the big thing to get when I was in school was a Samsung briefcase. And my uncle saved for a year to get me that briefcase. And so since I didn't have a father, my uncle was the one that filled in for that, in that role. And he was 15 when I was born. I think the reason why he filled in and wanted to be a father figure for me was because he was friends with my biological dad. And so I think he felt guilty. Yeah, he felt responsible for introducing my mom to him. Wow. And so he was always there for me. He was my best friend. He was my mentor. He was my dad, Well, when you're not getting along with friends or finding that affirmation in school, right? Yeah.
Was there a need to fight? Was there like this, like, I have to defend myself or else I'm going to be picked on more? Or was there like, I just want to blend in? What was that emotional?
And Mexico is more of a blender. And as hard as it was being the blonde-haired kid, it was hard for me to blend in, but I liked blending in. I wanted to get away from confrontation. And
it was volatile in the house.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, my grandma was an angry woman, and my mom met my dad that raised me when I was, I think I was like 2 or 3 years old. So this dude comes into my life. My mom is about 20 at the time, and he's 18 years old, 19 years old, and takes me in. And since I was so young, I didn't realize that he wasn't my dad. He just was there all of a sudden to me, from what I remember. And so they ended up getting married when they were 23, and my mom told me that the best day of his life, according to him, was the day that I called him dad. And I didn't do that until they got married, because that's when it clicked for me. I'm like, okay, they're married. All my friends' parents are married. They call their dad. So dad. So he was dad from the moment they got married. So I grew up thinking that was my dad. I had no idea about this biological father on the side. And it was in second grade, my mom, I remember I was finishing up second grade, and my mom came home one day and said, we're moving. We're going to the United States of America. No reason for it, just we're moving.
Did you have a dream of that at that time? Was there any like?
I didn't even know what the United States was. All I knew was Mexico. All I knew was my little neighborhood that I grew up in. I had my cousin. So since when my mom got married, we moved into the bottom part of my uncle's house. My grandma's brother. He had a little, I guess, a loft, and so it was a kitchen, a bedroom, living room, and a little dining area. And so in order for me to have a bedroom, they took the kitchen out and put it in the little living area, in the dining room area. So they turned that into a kitchen. My bedroom was the old kitchen, and it had the swinging door, and it had an access to the patio, and my parents had their bedroom. And so I had my cousin, and if you read my bio, it says I sold chiclets. So he was like my little best friend. So we used to go to, there was a pharmacy down the street. We used to, the pharmacy owner would leave some boxes out there sometimes, and
we hawking them.
We hawked them, and we would go. Since we didn't have money for fun and games, we would just go out on the streets and hustle some chiclets, just only for the sole purpose of going to the arcade. Now, people thought I was doing it for a living to put money on it. No, I was doing it to be a kid, just because otherwise I didn't have anything.
There wasn't any excess expenditures to be able to do something like that.
So when my mom told me, it was like my world was flipped upside down. I was going to have to leave my grandma and my uncle, who were
all you knew.
All I knew. I was going to leave my cousin Athav, who was all I knew as a friend. I didn't really have friends at school, because again, I didn't.
Which is crazy, because you're such a charismatic, magnetic, personable, social dude. Like the person I know, right? For the last 5-6 years, right? Like, it's interesting to me to think of you in a way that is trying to blend in, because that's just not you. Like the person I know today.
And I guess it's something that you have inside of you, but you need to have that blossom, and you need it to be watered, and you need it to come out. I just didn't have it at the time. My mom was.
Nobody was really poured into you, right?
My grandma was depressed. My mom was depressed. My uncle was busy in school. He was trying to become a lawyer in Mexico.
Do his best, right?
And my grandfather would try to have a relationship, and still does to this day, but I just couldn't. I couldn't respect him because of what he did to my grandma. So I shunned that. But my mom told me we were going to move, and a week later we're selling all our stuff. And stop me if I'm going too fast, but yeah, we sold all our stuff, and all I remember was just getting on a plane, and we were leaving, and I looked at my mom and I said, "Where are we going?"
Yeah.
And she said, "We're going to a place called San Diego." And I said, "Okay, at least it sounds Mexican, so that's cool." And I remember we landed, and one of the first things I noticed when we got on the freeway was we got in a cab, and we're going to go to my friend of a friend's house in North Park in San Diego, which was extremely ghetto. So if I thought I lived in the ghetto in Mexico, this was the ghetto in the United States, and the only difference was there was no tin roofs, but besides that, it was pretty run down.
Mexicali.
But I remember seeing a sign, and it said Los Angeles, and to me it was Los Angeles, and to me that was my mother's maiden name. The name that I had before she made my dad was Angeles. Oh. And so I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, this has got to be my place. I mean, my name was on the sign. And we ended up going to North Park, and I just remember seeing black people for the first time. Wow. I had never seen a black person in person. I'd seen them on TV, because sometimes they show American shows.
Sure.
And that was the first thing that I was like, oh my gosh, I've seen them on TV. There's black people.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And so we went to this tiny I think it was, man, no bigger than 650 square foot apartment that my mom's friend of a friend lived in.
Yeah.
In this really sketchy part of North Park.
Yeah.
And we stayed in the living room for, I don't even know how long. And I think my dad ended up getting a job at like Taco Bell and Jack in the Box and started saving money.
Yep.
We had little money from Mexico from what we sold. And we ended up moving in 2 doors down from my mom's friend of a friend. And she, I think it was like $600 a month for the apartment. Try to get that in San Diego now. You can't.
Yeah.
And then just like that, I was starting school. I didn't know how to speak English.
And you're what? How old?
I'm 8 years old.
8.
It was 1991. I didn't know how to speak English. I didn't have a friend. I didn't know anything. And my mom had gotten a job thanks to her friend, at the yacht club at the Marriott downtown San Diego.
Yeah.
So she was working a lot. My dad was working like 2 or 3 jobs.
So you're at home.
So I had to walk to school. So it wasn't like one of those where my mom got to take me to school first day. No, they were too busy working. So I literally had to walk the alleys to school. Sometimes they'd have a chance to take me. Yeah. And my first day of school, I remember I got out of school and I had a fanny pack. And I had quarters in there. I had probably like $3 in quarters in there. And I saw some popcorn. And I went up to the popcorn stand and I bought my little bag. And this was my first interaction. I went the whole day not understanding a word the teacher was saying, sitting there, just staring and going, what is happening?
Please don't call on me.
I didn't even know, because I didn't know if they were calling. I couldn't understand a word he said. I was just a mute kid, and whatever they wrote on the board, I just did. I remember they were learning cursive, and I just did my cursive.
And you were just tracing and not knowing what it meant, but just
I was just
trying to make it.
And I already knew cursive from my school in Mexico, and so I did it, and I was done. I would just sit there. And so I had no interaction with any kids. At recess, I sat by myself. At lunch, I sat by myself. I went and bought popcorn after school. And I start walking towards the alley to head home, and I remember these 3 kids are walking up to me, and they're African American, and I'm thinking, finally, I'm gonna have a friend. They're coming up to say hi to me, right? Everybody in America, my mom told me Americans are nice. Yeah. And they walked up to me, and he said something, and I don't remember because I didn't speak English at the time, and I just remember looking at him, and just, I guess he realized this kid he's either mentally handicapped or something's wrong with him because he's not talking back to me. And so he snatched my popcorn. And he said, this is my popcorn. That's all I remember. So I learned a new word right there. I learned popcorn.
Popcorn.
So all I can respond was, it's my popcorn. It's my popcorn. Yeah. And his 2 boys start laughing at me. And they start mocking me. It's my popcorn. It's my popcorn. And this is when my anger started. And I started feeling for the first time ever just anger. And I just remember screaming at them, it's my popcorn. I didn't know anything else to do. And then I just started saying something in Spanish. And as soon as I said something in Spanish, I got punched from the side. First day in school in the United States, kid punches me. First time I've been punched in the face. Besides my cousin and I fight, but hard. Right. To where I fell down. And these kids were probably 5th or 6th graders, and I'm in 3rd grade. And I remember falling down and just starting to feel kicks. One of the kids hit me right here. I got a knot. And I just remember covering up and just them kicking, punching. They poured my popcorn on me. And then they laughed at me and walked away.
So welcome,
and I got up, welcome to the United States, with my ripped up sweater, my bloodied lip, knot on my forehead. And I went home and I remember crying and just feeling so angry. Yeah. And like 2 weeks later, I'm sitting there. I got so afraid. It was almost like I had post-traumatic stress because of this as a kid, right? And I remember I wouldn't leave my little courtyard in the apartment, and they were gated because it was a ghetto area. I remember these kids walking home from school again, and now they knew where I lived. They stopped, and they were with a girl this time. And she walked up to me, and she looked at me, and she like reached for my hair, and I'm thinking, okay, a connection. And she grabs my hair and pulls it and slams me on the gate, and then spits on me. And then they walk away laughing at me. So this is like the first month. I'm just constantly I hated people. I started hating kids in that area. And my mom started noticing.
Were you resentful to your mom too? I mean, obviously you were upset that she'd torn you from all you knew, but you'd have to imagine, like, now you're having these experiences, like, were you defiant? Was there anything that happened with your guys' relationship then that was like, you started to break down that trust, or like, what was that?
I just felt like, why would you put me in this situation? You know, from what you remember, it's like you think your parents are this godlike creature, right? You hold them in a high pedestal, and you expect them to put you in situations where you're going to succeed. And I didn't feel that at 8 years old already. but I still respected them, and I figured they did this for a reason for me. And then I remember one day my dad came home and he had bought me a bike, and he goes, ride it around the neighborhood. Like, I remember he took me out and taught me how to ride it, and he goes, ride it around the neighborhood. And I'm like, I still didn't have any friends. I'm probably like 3 months in, and I'm like, I don't want to leave the area.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not going out there because
no,
I know
man,
what happens when I go out
you
there.
need to just go ride around. I see all the other kids riding around. Go ride. And I said, okay. So I start riding around the neighborhood, and I'm riding, and I see these two kids around, so it's completely around the block, so opposite to my apartment complex. And I see these kids playing, and they're on a bike, and so I'm riding by, and one of the kids flags me down. And they're playing with a ball, and so I stop. And the kid looks at me, and he goes, hey, let me ride your bike. And I'm like, okay, I'm sharing, right? Let me get some friends.
Maybe I can find a friend.
I'm like, okay, but it's okay. So I get out my bike, and his buddy's on the bike. He had the ball. And so I remember he left the ball with me. He got on my bike, and he took off. And I never saw that bike again.
What did your dad say when you got home?
So I walked home, I came up with a ball, and he looked at me almost like as if I traded a ball for a bike, right? And it wasn't a nice bike or anything. It was a Huffy from a thrift shop. So it wasn't anything like, it was probably, I think it cost him $25, but it was at the time a lot. Yeah. And he looked at me and he goes, what happened? And I said, a kid took my bike. And he goes, what'd you do about it? And I said, nothing. What do you mean, what did I do about it? And he goes, you got to start standing up for yourself in this neighborhood. And I said, well, I'm not used to doing that. What do you mean I got to stand up for myself?
What does that mean?
And so he goes, stand up for yourself. I said, okay. So I went to, a couple days later, I go to school, and I see this kid. And I see my bike. And I walk up to the kid, and I try to grab my bike, and the kid punches me. So I punch him back, and this was my first fight. And so I ended up getting, and the kid got the best of me. He was older than me, and he was quicker, and he got the best of me and got me. But I let him know that I wasn't gonna back down. And my dad, I got home and I said, Dad, I found the kid with my bike. And he goes, okay, what'd you do? And I said, I punched him. He goes, all right, where's your bike? And I was like,
he still got it.
Definitely did not win the bike back. He's older than me, but I punched him, Dad. And he goes, okay. I was like, can you get the bike back? I know who he is. And he goes, no. Wow. And I said, why not? And he said, because we're not very welcome in this neighborhood, and I don't know what his parents are going to be like. And so sometimes you got to chalk things up as a loss. And that's the moment I learned that sometimes you just have to let things go. Yeah. And I think that was the moment, too, where my dad realized that they had to move. And so I stayed in that neighborhood for 1 year. Okay. They put me in an ESL class after noticing that I didn't speak English for 3 days. I learned English within a month. I started realizing that for me to not get picked on, I had to get rid of my accent. The Mexican kids didn't want anything to do with me because I was blonde.
You didn't look like them.
And I dressed like a Catholic kid. Yeah. The black kids didn't want anything to do with me because I was blonde and I didn't speak English like they did, and they made fun of my accent. So I watched Married with Children. Really? I got a tape deck, and I would buy tapes, put them in there. I'd watch Married with Children, and I would record myself doing the lines back that Al Bundy would say, or Peg Bundy, or Bud Bundy. And The Simpsons. Yeah. And little did I know those probably shows I should not be watching or lines I should be repeating. Stuff, yeah. But, you know, by the time my dad found a new job in an apartment complex up north in North County in San Diego, which was a better neighborhood. It was the suburbs. It was definitely more, there was more diversity there. And so when we got the job out there, I started meeting kids in that apartment complex that were like me, that were low-income kids, because it was a low-income area of town, but we had something in common. Yeah. And that's when I started making friends. And that's when I started feeling myself actually rise up and not be this feeble kid that would just take it all the time. And that's when I started, I met my best friends, Frank and Eric, which those guys I still talk to. Yeah. And just those little things that, This man did so much for me, my dad did, that I knew he moved up there for me. I knew he did all this for me. Yeah. But what I also took into consideration is that, again, I didn't feel good enough because of who we were. I didn't feel good enough being friends with the kids with money. If I got a girlfriend with money, I would always sabotage it because I didn't feel good enough, because I wasn't worth it. And so I went through the stage from when I was in 5th grade all the way until my senior year of high school, where I would just sabotage every relationship I had with people I didn't deem myself to be worthy.
But you probably didn't even know that you were doing it.
No,
right? Because at that age, like it's all coping mechanisms.
Yeah, and I would see it happening, and you know, there's things in my past where that started catching up, where I started realizing things that happened to me as a kid were not cool,
Were not okay.
And then that started messing with my head as a teenager, and so that created this just ball of anger. So like when I was in high school, I was just angry at all times. I was angry, and luckily I played sports, and that helped with it.
Right.
But I didn't know that I should tell somebody. I didn't know that I should talk to my parents about it. I didn't know that I didn't even want to tell my friends for fear that, they would feel
shame.
Like, this kid's broken. Let's stay away from this guy.
Yeah.
So even though my dad did his best, my mom did their best to put me in a situation where I would succeed, I would just constantly find myself not wanting to.
So I'm going to jump forward and then we're going to call back because I want to sync back up with the time in your life chronologically that we're in. But you are a phenomenal father, right? You got two little kids, Kason and Chloe, right? Amazing husband to Kins. And your guys' family, you are the epitome of what it means to break the cycle of things you endure. And again, I think all of us want clarity as we grow up, as we get older, especially as we evaluate things that we endured, right? Scars that happened to us, right? We want to figure out why, what our parents could or should have or would have done differently, right? But the truth is your parents were doing their best.
They were. They tried their best. They really did.
And they're probably overcoming certain things that were done or not acted upon in their own lives, right? That like we could never know. And because I've experienced the same thing. Like all I wanted, man, and I talk about this often today, but being abused sexually as a 10-year-old boy, I found myself, all I wanted was my dad to say, it's not your fault. And I went 2 decades not admitting anything to anybody. And then in the time that I finally was willing to say this is something that happened and try to work through some of that stuff, I was creating resentment and not allowing myself to move through. Again, my parents were trying to do their best. They couldn't have done anything to change the circumstance that I endured, but I still felt like there was someone to blame. I just needed someone to blame, even if it was God.
Something.
Yeah. Like just something to be mad at. And football was the perfect outlet because your emotions you set aside, right? You use them, that anger, you use that fuel, and you use the physical constructs to enforce your will, and ultimately you're using achievement for people to applaud you so that you're not like looking at the parts of yourself or they're not seeing the parts of you that you feel are unworthy.
Right.
And so you now are doing something for your kids and offering them love that you didn't really get, unconditional love, nurturing. I see, and I don't have a boy, right? And in Kason, I love watching you with Kason because a boy is so much different than my 2 girls. Right? Like, not only is he going to want to, flood the backyard or light something on fire or do whatever, right? Which is like us, right? We're the guys that climb up on the roof and our parents, our wives, which are kind of our parents. Yell at us like, get your ass down here right now.
Don't jump off the roof into the pool.
Yeah, in Kason, we're like, dang it, Mom. But you've now done something to break cycles. And so let's go to the place of saying, what scars do you recognize in your life that now you are able to take a conscious choice to make sure that you're freeing people from the same type of bondage and suffering that you felt?
If I'm honest with you, I still feel like I'm not doing a good enough job with that.
Why?
Because it's something like, I don't know, man. It's probably something I haven't talked about publicly, or enough about. Yeah. Because when you're a victim of what we've been through, you, at the time, I was so young. Mine started when I was 5 years old, and it was my mom's best friend's brother. And at the time, you don't realize what is wrong. He used gifts to lure me as a little boy. Hey, he found, and I'll tell you exactly what it was, and I remember to this day, and I will never forget it. And I was 5 years old, and I will never forget this. And even at 5, I do remember thinking, oh, this is odd, but he's older, and he's my mom. I trust him. He's my mom's friend's brother. So as a 5-year-old, I trusted this.
You're looking for affirmation.
I'm looking for affirmation, and he's such a freaking predator that he heard my mom talking about how I had a play at my preschool, and I was a firefighter, and that I had been trying to make a paper mache firefighter hat, and I think I had a meltdown because I didn't get it right, and so he heard that. And so when I remember he had toys because he was he's grown, but he still had toys. So that's what I would get to play with when I was at her house, when my mom would go hang out with her friend. And so I remember he came into the little play area where I was playing with like Legos or something. And he goes, "Hey, do you need a firefighter hat?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. I really do." And he goes, "I got one." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, Can I have it?" And he goes, "Yeah, but you got to do me a favor." And that's when it started. He asked for me to do something that was not right. And then he masked it by saying, "Don't tell your mom. Just this is us. I'll keep giving you toys and I'll keep giving you candy. Just don't tell mom." And man, this went on until I was probably 7 years old. Until I stopped wanting to go to that house. It used to be where my mom would be going to her house and I'd be like, "Oh, I want to go because I get to play toys." And it started it just didn't feel right. I remember feeling as a kid, I just didn't want to go, and I would only go if my mom made me go. Otherwise, I would stay with my grandma or my uncle. But I didn't tell anybody. And I didn't realize it was wrong until I was probably middle school when I think we did sex ed, and they talked to us about that. At the time, it's too late. You're teaching this to 12-year-olds, that they already know that it's wrong. They already know that if that's happening, you better tell somebody. Then you teach this to kids when they're in preschool and first grade and kindergarten, but they didn't. And so at that time, I realized, oh my God. And it wasn't I felt dirty. I felt like it was my fault. I felt like, then you start having these weird, because they're talking about sexuality.
Yeah.
Wait, am I gay?
Yeah.
So I did all this stuff that's I know I like girls and I get excited when I see girls and I really want to kiss girls and I want to grab boobs.
Mass confusion.
But am I gay? So I went through this confusion in my middle school years, but I still didn't tell anybody.
It's a lot to harbor, man.
And you use that like you. I used it with sports. I played football and I took all my anger out on that field, and it was fine and it worked and it did its job until I stopped playing. Until you get to college,
so you get quiet.
And then you realize, okay, I'm in college now. I'm not good enough to play college ball, and I'm gonna walk away because I'm not gonna go out there and hurt myself. And that's when all that starts creeping back in. And these thoughts now turn into depression.
Yeah.
And I felt that in high school, but I could still mask it. And there were times in high school where I got so low where I even freaking had pills in front of me just because I felt so gross about that. My whole from 15 to 18 years old, I just felt like I just didn't even want to be alive. I felt gross. I didn't want to be there. When it wasn't football season, I just didn't care. And I still tried. I masked it. I did well in school. I did all the right things. I had girlfriends. I was active in school. I did everything I could to mask it. But inside, I was just broken, and I just didn't want to be there. Wow. And I just remember in high school, it was in college when I finally it was my breaking point. Was my uncle passed away.
Which was your original root, someone who really cared.
This is the guy. This is the person I should have had the conversation with. This is the man who would have made it right. This is the man who was there for me and would have made everything better in my head. And he was gone, and I waited too long.
And that was the man that if anyone could have said it's not your fault and would have carried weight.
Exactly.
This is the man.
And I was 18 years old, and he passed away, and it was the hardest. And I remember going over to Torrey Pines, and there's these cliffs right there. And that's where I used to go when I would get really depressed, which is probably not a good idea when you're depressed to be on a cliff because most people want to jump off of it. But I just like to see the ocean.
There's a serenity in it, yeah.
And I remember that was the first time where I thought, what if I jump? I don't have an uncle. I don't have a girlfriend. At the time I had stopped going to school after my uncle passed away. I quit everything. Everything. I just stopped everything.
Just apathetic.
I would just
feel.
I locked myself in my room for 30 days, and I would only leave to go drive to the beach. I didn't go to work. I didn't go to class. I would strictly stay in my room. I didn't eat. I was 205 pounds, and I was probably 160 pounds, 65 pounds. Man. And I was just depressed. And one of my buddies that I played football with one day, because they kept checking on me, they knew that I lost my uncle. He came to my house one day because we were on break for school, or he was on break, and he came to my house. And my dad answered the door, and he goes, "Hey, where's Jose been?" And he goes, "He's been in his room." And he goes, "Oh, I thought it was in Mexico." Everybody thought I was still in Mexico. They thought I went to Mexico and stayed down there with my mom. And he goes, no, he's in his room, and I think he needs help. Wow. And so my buddy, Mike, came up. He opened the door, and I remember the look in his eyes was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what's wrong? Yeah. And I just remember looking at him, and he goes, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. And he says, well, get up. And I said, okay. He goes, get dressed. And my boy Mike grabbed me and drove me back down to San Diego State. He goes, all your friends down there are asking about you, because I was rushing a fraternity at the time. Yeah. They want you to be involved, dude. Like, you can't just disappear on people like that. And it was towards the end of the first semester. Wow. And so we went down to the fraternity house where I was rushing. And I remember when I walked in, everybody looked at me like I was a ghost. Like, nobody, they just looked at, I'd been gone for a month, dude. Right. And they said, they just handed me a beer, which is probably not the right thing to do at the time. And so it was right around the time we were ending school, and one of my boys said, hey, so my roommate's moving out, you should move in. You need to be around people, you're too down. And I said, okay. And, so I moved in. Yeah. And if that was the moment, if my boy Mike wouldn't have come out and he wouldn't have taken me to that house, and I wouldn't have seen my future roommate Chris, and I wouldn't have moved in, I met my wife weeks later. Yeah. I met her at a party weeks later. I would have completely missed that stage of my life if I would have stayed in that room. Little things like that happen in my life that, okay, tell me everything is going to be cool. Like, you just got to keep living and let these things unfold and see what awesomeness is ahead of you.
And we've had a lot of these talks, obviously not in this scenario, but I believe wholeheartedly depression, suicide, right? Like, there are states of impermanence. You have this too shall pass. And that doesn't mean anything when you're down and depressed, right? Like, those are all cliche as hell. And it's like, oh, it sounds good when you're doing good. But when you're in that state, it doesn't matter. No. But suicide is a permanent solution to a temporal situation.
Exactly.
And I think you're right. Like, anybody that's listening to this, anybody that's watching this, like, take great heart in the fact that when you're at that last rope, right, you're at the last bit, like, there's something right around the corner, because you just getting out, right? Like, I remember being in a state just this past year where a coach that I was working with just really was like, you need to just go get in your car, grab your dog who brings you great joy, and just drive. Yeah. And be willing to just go out into the universe, because if you're stuck in that helpless state and you're just sitting, the things that you're running through your head, right? It doesn't make sense. It's counterintuitive to be willing to step out and to look outside of yourself, but something about piercing that veil. And I know that Kinsey has been such a key component to you and all the stability and all the things that you've strived for and achieved in your life as a result of having somebody in your corner.
Right.
And so were you able, and how early on in your guys' relationship were you able to bring up some of these things?
I didn't bring the abuse up. She was more like the replacement for my uncle. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it was still so fresh. And I lost him in November. I met her a couple months after that. And so she replaced that person. I used to call my uncle and just talk to him, or I would send him a letter. And so she replaced him. She was my sounding board. If I was struggling, she was the person I talked to. She was the one that gave me nurturing and love, and she showed me affection from someone that was not part of my family. It showed me that people outside of my family could show me love, because I come from, as much respect as I have for my dad and my mom. My dad never played catch with me. I'd be that kid with a football at all times. I'd be like, Dad, go play catch with me. And it was maybe because he worked so hard and he had so many jobs where he just didn't have the energy, and I totally get it now as a dad. That's right. But he didn't go out there and play catch with me. If I asked him to play basketball, no, man, I'm tired. I don't remember him hugging me, so I make it a point with my son. And you see me, I hug that kid all the time. And it was one of those where she gave me that. It was I love you. Oh my God, you tell me you love me, okay. I didn't really get that from my parents, and my mom's not very lovey either. I know she loves me, but she wasn't the cuddle me up. I mean, I remember as a kid, I was like 6 years old, and I remember going to kiss my mom. I just wanted to grab her face and kiss her, and she turned her face. And I remember feeling that was one of the times I felt rejection from my mom. I remember trying to cuddle with my dad and like hug him and stuff, and I don't know if it's a Latin culture thing or if it's the machismo thing from our culture, but trying to cuddle and like hug up on him, he kind of sit over here by yourself.
Probably they weren't ever given that either.
So right, and again, I know that they didn't mean to shun me.
Right.
They didn't mean to put that in my head, but I'm like, okay, so this guy's abusing me and he's like touching me in ways that I should not be touched. And all I want is love and comfort from my parents, but they don't even want to touch me. This freaking
so the two
stranger.
Extremes between
so it's like
those
I'm
two
like, what is right?
Yeah.
So she gave me that. She gave me the affection. She told me she loved me. She would hug me all the time. It was that. I guess she filled that void that I had been missing. You know, and she filled it. But I didn't want to tell her about the abuse because I felt like if I told her, she'd bounce. Oh, this dude's. Like, there's no way this guy's gonna be okay, you know?
Yeah, because at some level you wanted to be her rock and prove yourself as this man, as this alpha, as this, right?
Yeah.
And if she knows that you got flex in your armor, like maybe I'm not that guy, right?
Right, exactly.
And she could run away, and that's the only stable thing that you had.
And so this was another, and she was way too good looking for me at the time, you know? So that was another, like, I didn't.
I love your guys' old pictures, man.
Oh, bro, we did.
I'll attach a couple.
I'll give it to you.
Because I remember with your
Don't laugh.
parted bangs.
Don't laugh.
Oh, you can laugh. Laugh as much as you like. The parted bangs with the bleached hair, and Kinsey's a doll, man. Like,
bro, she took me to the beach to do a photo shoot. Her sister did it.
Okay.
I'd never done a family photo shoot.
Yeah.
So she took me to the beach. We took photos together. I was like, she goes, this is gonna be our Christmas card. So we're on the beach. I'm wearing a tank top. I'm like, I'm about 160 pounds, and I'm out there with my baggy size 38 jeans that I bought from the thrift shop, and she's out there modeling and stuff. But she gave me that. She gave me that sense of family that I was missing, and
she's fierce.
She's fierce, and she doesn't take any bull crap, and she accepted my anger issues, and I never was angry with her, but I had an issue with other dudes, and I was that guy that I'll admit it. I was going out there,
my girl?
and I would fight. I would want to go fight because I was just angry, and I'm not gonna take it out on her because I love her, and I don't want to be that dude. I'm gonna respect her, but I would 100% go to a party with full intention of knocking a dude out, and that was the 100% wrong thing to be doing.
Your power was taken from you. There's a way to assert to try to reclaim it.
Right.
You just didn't have an avenue to do it and a mechanism. Now you're not playing sports, right? School you're doing fine, but you need that outlet for emotional purge.
Dude, so bro, in college I literally went to every party and I wouldn't even go to have fun when you should be doing in college. And I did have fun, but I would literally be looking for that one guy that was just
give me a chance.
Yeah, and I don't care if I lose or not, but I just wanted to feel something. Wow. I just wanted to feel something because that pain that was inside, I wanted to feel it outside. And so I figured if I just get punched in the face hard enough, it'll go away.
Wow.
If I could just get it out on somebody, it'll go away. But it didn't.
So that superseded even the fear of getting whooped by someone else.
Yeah.
Because you were like, I don't care if I'm on the losing end of this because I just want to feel and I get that because the apathy, you numb yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
I had no fear.
And so it's almost this invincible state because you're like, well, I kind of want to die anyway. Right, like I used to drive, so where Prefontaine crashed and when he was drunk and killed himself, when he died, there's these cliffs. They actually now have a fence up, which is really smart because it's like 150 feet up over this freeway interstate kind of. And I used to go out there in high school and same thing. I don't think I ever knew I was depressed. I just couldn't cope with not having anybody to discuss what I had endured. And I would walk, and I remember walking thinking, and I'm not scared of heights, but I get that same, I think, innate, like if you're on a cliff or something, you're like, ooh, and you naturally, like there's an instinctive whatever. But because of what happened, I felt like I couldn't trust my instincts.
Yeah.
And I got really good at standing on literally cliffs. My parents, I actually don't even know this, but I used to drive to South Eugene and stand out there. And I used to see how close to the edge I could stand just to see if I could get a rise out of my emotions. Or when I started driving, I remember my Jeep when I'm like 19 years old in college, and I'd be on a backcountry road going 80 and I'd turn off the lights. I would turn the lights off, the little push button light bulb thing in the old Cherokees, and I'd push it shut, and I would drive as fast as I could on a dark road. Couldn't see anything until I got so scared that I'd have to pull them on just to feel something.
Yeah.
I know that sounds irrational. I never cut myself. But to me, I didn't really care if I died because I was in so much pain, right? And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. And like, I think, the suicide thing for me is people you start to become addicted or at least romanticize so much with what it could be to be out of the state you're in that it becomes this incessant thing that convinces you somehow that that's freedom, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not that. The best thing I think for us and men like you and me is to realize that like we love to achieve and do great things, but that's not where our worth is measured.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And like, dude, everything that you've achieved, literally from an immigrant coming to this country, having nothing, getting whooped, to all of a sudden needing to whoop others, to now where the pendulum swings back and you're in a continuum where, yeah, you have days that are hard, but you can evaluate the awareness, again, the gift that you wasn't the gift you wanted, but it was the gift that has given you the paradigm shift or the perspective that allows you to hug your son. Because, dude, like, you could easily have repeated patterns, and you're not. Like, which is why I admire you so much. So I want to go back to Kinsey. Through college, right, you're in this state where you want to prove yourself to yourself and to her and all the different things. Let's get to radio. Like, at some level, like, because this is just cool. And I like when you point to these connect the dots that are kind of beyond explanation. And most of the people in my life, I enjoy their stories because they give credit in areas that they're like the universe, luck, God, whatever you want to call it, teed something up. And the chance meeting, right, from Mike to Chris, right, your future roommate, to meeting Kinsey, to all those things, has teed up now for a career for you, and talk about how that kind of happened. And again, people may know kind of your background and how the opportunity was had, not just in California, but then with Kidd.
Yeah.
But like, talk about some of the things that maybe people don't know about that situation and the doors that were opened.
So when I met Kinsey, obviously I was at rock bottom, and she's the reason why I decided to get myself back on track. Cause
She gave you hope.
and mind you, I was still trying to sabotage. Trust. I was trying to sabotage this relationship. I would be a jerk. I would do everything to show her that I'm not worthy of her, so that she would be the one to walk away. I seriously, and I can look back, can tell you, I tried to sabotage because I didn't feel like I deserved her. But I don't know why she stuck around, because I don't think many girls would have stuck around with I was always down. I wasn't the guy that I think a lot of girls need. You know, you need a guy that's sure of himself, and you want a guy that's confident. And I didn't feel that. Yeah. But as soon as I guess, and so when I started realizing that this girl wasn't going anywhere, I started realizing, okay, well then I need to give her the life that she deserves. We came from similar backgrounds. She didn't have much money growing up. Her parents tried.
Chula Vista, right?
La Mesa, California. Okay. She lived right by San Diego State, but her parents made an honest living. Yeah. They graduated college later in life, and her dad worked for the school, and her mom became a teacher, and so it was. They loved each other, and I just felt all these similarities with her. Like, okay, we were raised similarly. I mean, obviously I'm from Mexico, and so I wanted to give her the life that I felt like she deserved. And so I went back to school, and I wanted to go to medical school. That was out of the question real quick because money issues and schooling was just going to take too long, and I wanted it now. So I decided I was going to become a nurse. And so I was full on going towards that goal of becoming a nurse. And in between this I was homeless. I went through being homeless, living in my truck, to meeting Kinsey, and she was the one that, when I was about to go homeless again, pulled me out of it and said, no, stay with me. She found a place for us to live together. About 3 months into a relationship, I'm 19, she's barely 18, and she's finding a place for us to live with a classmate of hers from LA, and finds us a room for $300 a month. Finds me a place to live. We lose that one. I'm about to be homeless again. She could always go back home. I didn't have anywhere to go. She gets me to stay at her parents' house. She continuously just shelters me over and over and over, to the point where I start feeling like a piece of crap because I should be the one providing. I should be the one paying for this. I should be getting you an apartment, and I'm over here broke as a joke with a single cab truck, barely can pay for food. I gotta eat for free at the restaurant I work at. Wow. And so that's why I went into nursing. I figured that's a steady job. Everybody's always gonna need a nurse, and males were freaking getting bonus. Yeah. They're getting like $10,000 to go to a hospital. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. I want $10,000 for a bonus. And so I remember going into a counselor right before there's a 2-year RN program you do before you get your RN certificate. And so I was about to start it, two-year programs. I'm about to go. It's ready to go. I'm set. Yeah. I'm about to start my life. Yep. And I went to a counselor, and they said I needed one more elective. And they said, hey, you should do an internship. Those are pretty chill and easy, and that way you don't have to.
Some credits.
Yeah, you don't have to do papers. And I said, okay. And I said, well, should I go intern at the hospital? And she looked at me like I was crazy. Now, this goes from the high school counselors, because I always had entertainment in my blood. I always loved it. My dad and I used to do fake shows back when we first moved to, in my little tape deck that I used to record, we used to do fake shows on there.
Do you think part of that was almost like an escape? For you, it was like almost an imaginary land, right? Where you could go into these characters and like...
Voices, little fake commercials we'd make. I loved it. And I just loved that you could... I hated myself so much that I felt like I could create somebody that I wasn't. Somebody that was cool. Alter ego, right? Somebody like wrestlers.
I mean, it's like a superhero.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so all these insecurities that I had, I could transform them through tape. And so I told her, this high school counselor, when I said, I'm interested in the arts, in theater or in movies, TV shows, radio. I love radio. And no, you'll never make it. You'll never make it. That's all they kept telling me. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, you'll never make it. Base salary is $40,000. How are you going to support a family? So I put that away until I met with this counselor at San Diego State. And she said, no, you're going to be in a hospital for the rest of your life, probably, if you become a nurse, right? Unless you choose to switch careers, but most likely you're going to work there forever. She goes, go try something. Go. What are you interested in? I said, for the first time in my life, somebody asked me what I was interested in.
Rather than telling you what you couldn't
right?
or should or would or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
My mom always said, you should be a doctor. My dad said, you should always do this, be a computer engineer. My grandma, she was just always negative Nancy. You should do doctor stuff. Yeah. And my uncle was a lawyer, but I didn't want to be a lawyer. That was his thing. I didn't want to take his thing. And so she looked at me and she said, what do you want to be? And I said, I like entertainment. I love it. I love TV. I want to be in a movie. I want to be a radio personality. It would be so cool because I listen to them on the way to school, and I just think it's the coolest job. And she goes, well, you have LA up the road. You could be a PA at a TV show if you don't mind driving, or you could work at a news station, or you could work at a radio station as an intern. They have them. And I said, really? And she goes, that's exactly what people do to get into these industries. And I said, okay, I'll think about it. And I was fully committed to just getting an internship at a hospital. Yeah. And I got in my car and I was driving home, and I was listening to the radio station, and the radio station that I ended up working for said, the promotions coordinator came on and said, director, and he came on and said, hey, if you want to be an intern for Channel 933, stop by.
Wait, there was an ad on the radio?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he said the address. He said, stop by 9660 Granite Ridge Drive. I look off of Arrow Drive, and I look up, and Arrow Drive was like 3/4 of a mile exit, and I knew what the exit was because it was literally right down the street from the Chargers practice facility, and I used to go watch practice all the time. I'm like, well, that's right by the Chargers. So I'm literally listening to this commercial as I'm getting off the freeway and getting directions. I'm like, all right, obviously it's not over here by the Chargers facility, found Granite Ridge Drive, found the station, walked in, filled an application, and when I walked in, they thought I was there to pick up a prize. And I was like, no, I want to be an intern.
I'll take the prize too if you
They looked at me weird, and I'm like, okay. So I filled out the thing. Yeah. I'm walking out the door, and these two girls are walking down the stairs as I'm leaving, and there's a staircase going up to the second floor of the radio station in San Diego, and then double doors, glass doors. And I was about to reach those doors, and these girls, for some reason, said, hey, are you picking up a prize? Again, I'm like, oh, no, I just put in an application for an internship. And they looked at me, and they're like, well, we're doing interviews right now. You want to come up and talk?
Same time.
And I was like, yeah, I got time.
I didn't know any of this. This is awesome.
And so I walk up there, and I go into this conference room with these two girls that are on radio, and they're doing what I freaking envisioned. And that's when it clicked. I looked at them. I'm like, you guys look like me. Like, you're just regular people. You don't look like entertainers. You look like me. Yeah. And that's when I was like, I could do this. And I felt like I was interviewing them. I was like, so how long have you guys been doing this? Like I'm asking them questions, and like, what's it like? What's it like to meet AJ and Hula and Jesse from the AJ's Playhouse? What's that like? And they're looking at me like, oh, you're like a fan of the station. And I was like, oh my God, yeah. I work at a restaurant, and I drive a meat truck in the morning, and I listen to their show, and I freaking love it, and I love their parody song challenges, and I actually wrote a couple myself, and they're like, oh, okay. Do you want to be an intern? And I said, yeah, I do. I do want to be an intern. And they're like, all right, you got it. And I said, that's it? And they said, yeah, I mean, all we want is somebody that's passionate to come in here and work for us, and you're gonna. They're like, by the way, you're working for free. You understand that? And I was
yeah, you're like,
100%.
I'll take it. Yeah.
I'll work for free. And they said, you just got to get school credit. Can you get that? And I was like, 100%. I just talked to my counselor. They're the ones that said I should do this. And so I walked out of there, and that was probably that was the happiest I had felt since the first time I got to kiss Kiddly.
Wow.
You know, I was walking on clouds. I'm 20 years old. I finally.
And you didn't have a cell phone, so you couldn't call Kiddly.
I didn't have a cell phone.
So you're just trying to get back to go tell her this amazingness.
So I get home, and mind you, at this time we're living in a pool house for a sketchy dude that we used to live with. He had a pool house, and we're living in the dining area, so we have no bedroom. We're living in a dining area in this pool house. And so I get home, and I remember the phone rings, and Kinsey was at work. Oh, she was stoked, and she was like, well, cool, that's awesome, that's great. I call my mom. Hey, Mom, I got an internship at a radio station. Crickets. Wow. What about nursing? And I said, well, I'm still going to school. It's not like I'm dropping it, but it's like I've always wanted to do radio. And she goes, well, why are you wasting your time? It's not a. So my high went just.
Dude, let me make a statement too for anyone that's listening, because we love family, and those closest to us, unfortunately, often will conveniently keep you small. Yeah. And it's not necessarily their fault.
Unintentionally.
I think it's unintentional or unconscious. Like, there's this need to define you and keep you where you are, right? Because if you go and grow, like, there's a threat to the relationship they have with you.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not, and like, we have kids now too. I mean, if I could stuff my little girls in a shoebox and keep them the same size, like, it'd be amazing. But that's not how the world works.
Yeah.
So knowing that the family, like, there's a reason why when we bring adaptive athletes in here, the goal is for them to have healthy selfish, because they need to pour into themselves, and then therefore everyone they prioritize in their life will get the better version of them, which elevates everyone, right? But unfortunately, especially those that come from out of town, they may leave a spouse back home, right? There's that disconnect, and that person feels like they need to somehow like sabotage somebody's growth because it's a threat to the role they play in their life.
Sabotaging is a defense mechanism that we have as humans that we need to get a grip on, because we all do it. And I even as a kid, I told you, I noticed it. And as family members, we do it. And it's jealousy. It's a little bit of jealousy. It's a little bit of they're doing something you might have wanted to do back, whatever it is, but we sabotage each other. And it's like, I don't understand why we can't get a grip on that.
So do you think that I want to get back to what you're saying, because I'm on a great run with the radio internship, but for you, do you feel like humans do that because of fear of the uncertain? That whether it's the person, like if I'm the person holding somebody back, I'm fearful that they're gonna not have the same relationship to me, or if I'm gonna go and grow, that all of a sudden I'm not gonna have the same. So it's almost like this convenient complacency, even if it's painful.
Yeah, I mean, there's that, and then there's the sabotage that we did, which was, I'm not worthy. It's the I'm not worthy sabotage, and then there's the my way sabotage. I feel like I need to drag you back down because you're not going to make it, and I think this is what's right.
So it's almost like a protection mechanism. It's a protection mechanism for someone or for yourself.
So I think this is better for you, so I'm going to make sure that I freaking destroy your hopes and dreams and just squash them before you get too excited, right?
So that's what your mom was doing.
I think that's what my mom was doing.
Because she didn't want you to be disappointed or let down?
I think she didn't think I was going to make it. And to this day, she tells me, I'm surprised you're a radio personality because of how quiet you were as a kid. And I was like, well, I was quiet because of the crap I had to put up with. And I remember when I hung up with my mom, I just remember thinking, I wish I could call my uncle. Yeah. I wish I could call Ricky.
Did you talk to him a lot even?
Oh, yeah. I still do. Yeah. And I wish I could call him because I knew he would be so stoked. And he used
That's all you wanted was someone.
I'm proud of you. That's all I want. Hey, I'm proud of you for taking the initiative to take a risk. Because my mom and my dad wasn't really too thrilled about it either, because I know they moved to the States because they wanted me to have a better life than they had in Mexico.
They wanted stability.
I totally understand that. And in the industry I was trying to dive into was not very stable. Medical industry is very stable. Yeah. So I get it. You came to this country because you wanted to give me opportunity. Yeah. But at the same time, you came to this country for this exact same reason. Right. I have in Mexico, to become a television personality for the most part, or somebody famous, you have to You have to be born into that.
Yeah.
You know, you come from something. Yeah. Your parents have the money.
Yeah.
It's tough to break
Yep.
a poor person into entertainment.
This is the American dream, right?
Here in the States, anybody, a drug dealer, Jay-Z, could become a billionaire. A stripper, Cardi B, could become the first ever Grammy-winning female rapper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is...
Or a kid from 8 Mile could become freaking Eminem.
Eminem, who should have been dead at 17, is one of the greatest rappers of all time.
Right.
So this, at the same time, I'm thinking, no, this is what the United States is about. It's about these opportunities. And look, if I don't make it, cool. Medical industry
not going
will always
nowhere.
nowhere. It's going to be there. They're still going to need male nurses.
Yep.
But I just remember just feeling squashed, you know, and just let down that I couldn't call my uncle. My mom and dad weren't into it. My grandma wasn't into it.
Yeah.
The only person that had my back was Kinsey.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only person that was my cheerleader. And I remember going to my first meeting as an intern.
I was gonna say, well, tell me about the first day.
And I'm thinking about, okay, I'm walking in, and there's gonna be like the 2 other people they hired. And my goal now, because I'm competitive, you know, ever since it comes from sports, I'm like, I need to pass everybody up. I need to be the starter. I need to be on the field playing. I need to be the man. Yeah. And so I walked in with that mentality. I walked in with a swag. I walked in like, this is the beginning of. In my head, I remember sitting in my car. I'm like, this is the beginning of my life.
Wow.
And for some reason, I already unknowingly had already decided to put nursing in the back burner. I was like, I'm gonna put everything I have into this. Yeah.
It was gut. It wasn't this. It was I know this is right.
I know, because I remember what I felt listening to the morning show when I was driving the meat truck for my restaurant in the mornings, getting the meat. I'd wake up at 4 in the morning to go get meat downtown and drive it back to the restaurant.
You had all the intangibles.
I remember.
Ethic.
I was like, I want a meat truck driver to listen to me. I want them to think I'm cool. I want them to think I'm funny. I want them to feel like I'm their friend, because I didn't feel like I had enough friends growing up.
Dude, on Monday, will you shout out all the meat truck drivers?
Oh, 100%. I love meat truck drivers, dude.
Shout out to all the meat truck drivers.
You drive a meat truck, bro, and you got to load it yourself like I did. But yeah, I just remember I was telling myself, this is it. Just walk in there and own it. Just the same way you walk on the field, even though you felt unsure, you owned it. Yeah. And I walked into this room, and bro, I tell you, there was about 20 interns. And I said, shit. My mom was right. I'm not going to make it.
Wow.
Now, I'm still showing that I'm confident. But there's so many interns, and there's good-looking dudes and pretty girls, and I'm like, and then they go, okay, and guys that already had the cards, but they were interns, and it said intern on it. I'm like, how they already got cards? Yeah. And they're like, oh, these are our return interns. I'm like, oh, I got to compete against dudes that have already, oh my God. Okay. So I had this like.
Go to the bathroom real quick.
Dude, yeah. I had this panic moment of, okay, I need to just go back to school. Like, this is not the business right here. These dudes have been here. I remember this guy named Nardo walked into our meeting, and they said, oh, this is Nardo. He just got hired to do part-time on air. And I was like, just got hired to be part-time on air. And they go, he was an intern. And, and I'm like, okay. And a boy toy, there's another thing. Like, you could get a job at the boy toy, and you wear a tank top and go spray girls' tattoos and stuff. And he did that. And he was an intern for us for like 3 years. And I'm like, I'm 3 years.
You're like...
So I'm like, this is like college, bro. Like, I'm going to have to put in 4 years to get a job at the radio station. Now I'm thinking, I'm like, again, how am I going to support my girlfriend so I don't lose her and still maintain this job? And they set the meetings up, and they're asking you to work events, and everybody wants to work them, so you're trying to get in, so you show, but everybody wanted to get in because they're all thirsty. Yeah. And I just remember thinking, okay, I got one event out of like the 10 that we had, one. Wow. And it was a crappy event. It was like a van hit. And before we left, they gave us a tour of the studios, and they said, okay, this is the sales department. Cool. This is the production department. Yep. And then they took us down to the studios. And I remember walking to the studios. I felt like this is probably what it feels like to be a football player at the University of Alabama. Yeah. About to go into the freaking, into the tunnel. I'm like, this is probably what they feel like. Because I felt like this just like...
a cathedral. It was like a sanctuary.
There's on-air, like the on-air lights. I saw one turn on. I'm like, oh, crap. That dude's on the radio right now. Like, that guy's talking to people right now, right?
It's on the airwaves.
And and I'm saying this out loud audibly, dude. I'm like, so that guy's talking to like the world right now? And they're looking at me like, this freaking dork is weird, man. Like all the other interns are like looking at me like, that's what the on air means. Yeah, you freaking moron. And I'm like, oh, and that guy's answering phones, like for Cha-Cha. Cha-Cha was the afternoon girl. And I'm like, okay. And then they take us into the studio. And I remember seeing the board. And I couldn't tell you a word they said because I'm just staring at the board. And she's like talking to us, Cha-Cha's talking to us, and she's pushing buttons. I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but I don't really like people to come into my studio. I'm really recluse, but it's nice to meet you guys. Thank you so much.
And you were just like,
Channel 933, this is Cha-Cha. And she starts doing a break, and as we're walking out, and I'm just like, I want that. Yeah. I want that so bad. I want it so bad. And as we're leaving, the morning show host is walking by to go to his office, AJ, and he introduces himself to all of us, and hey, I'm AJ, and I shook his hand, and I remember going, hey, can people intern for your show? And he goes, yeah, we're full right now, and walked away. And I said, damn, okay, cool. Yeah. So I guess I'm just gonna have to put up with it. And so that first couple of weeks, kids start dropping, and I start noticing, I'm like, okay, this is cool. I started noticing kids start dropping, and I took it upon I got my key card, and I went to my boss. I'm like, so I can go anywhere with this? And they said, yeah, just don't respect the on-air staff and respect the sales department. But yeah, I mean, we need you to go around. You're going to be doing promotions and stuff. So, and I was like, so I can go anywhere I want. And he goes, yeah. So I snuck down to the on-air studios, and I went and stood outside the Channel 933 studio, and Cha-Cha once again was doing her show, and I remember her phone screener, who was an intern, and these were tough to get, walks out and goes to the bathroom, and she sees me and she goes, so I walk in and she goes, can you answer phones while she goes to the bathroom? And I said, yeah. She goes, all right, we're gonna do boy toy poetry reading. Do you think you can do boy toy poetry reading? And I was like, what's that? And she goes, I'm gonna give you the lyrics to the song, and then you read it dramatically, like poetry, and you're gonna do it with a couple other guys. And this other dude that was on air walks in, and this other guy that's on air, like two guys that I listened to on the freaking radio walk in, and I'm about to go on air with these guys. And we do this boy toy poetry reading, and I remember so nervous, and I pitted out, and I didn't know how good I did, I don't care. And the phone screener came back, and she goes, thank you, and that was it. And I walked out, and it was just like, yeah. And I'm like, I can't call anybody, I don't have a cell phone yet. And I'm like, I just want to tell somebody. So I go there's a production studio right next door to it. And so I just walk in there just to gather myself. Again, I don't want to look like a dork. I don't want to be in the hallway just freaking. And so I'm like doing my fist little pumps, and I walk in, and I realize that this guy named the producer of the morning show is in that studio. And he like peeks out and he goes, yeah, can I help you? And I said, oh, your boy toy Jesse. He goes, yeah, what's up, man? What's your name? And I said, Jose, I'm an intern. And he goes, cool, bro. So what are you doing as an intern? I was like, nothing. I was like, I wanted to intern for the morning show, but AJ said, I talked to him, he's busy, and you guys are full, and he goes, okay. And I said, and he goes, well, good to meet you. And I was like, I guess that's my cue to leave. And I start walking out, and I look back at him, I'm like, hey man, if you were to give me any advice, what would it be? And he looks at me, and he kind of smiled, and he goes, just work harder than the guy next to you. And I said, that's it? That's it. Just work harder than the guy next to you. And he goes, that's literally it in radio. And he goes, I've never worked anywhere else, but that's it here. And I said, okay, how'd you start? And he goes, I started as an intern and then became a boy toy and then kissed up to the program director and got the job as a midday guy, and then the morning show hired me. And I said, just like, how long did it take you? And he goes, year or two? Mm-hmm. I said, okay. Mm-hmm. All right,
it's possible.
So I got out of that room and I told myself, for the next 2 years, you live here. Yeah. I went home and I told Kinsey, I am gonna work at that radio station when the sun comes up and when the sun goes down, and I'm just gonna work my butt off. I went and learned about the sales department. I'd ask questions like, oh, what do you guys do? You guys meetings? Yeah. I went and sat in with the production people, and I started learning how to edit stuff, and like I would just sit in and watch them.
Dude, your curiosity, right? Anytime, like again, it was the last pick in the NFL draft, but far before that, I had a curiosity to know everything about both sides of the football, so that I could uniquely observe my own position in the it's chess, right?
Yeah,
It's the
that's
same
all it
thing.
is.
It's deciding that there's someone more talented than you, but through hard work, the mountain humbles all men, all people, right? And when that time comes, those that rely on talent alone, they get surpassed.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what we've always had a kindred spirit in that, right? The underdog thing, the one that was least expected to, and yet surpassed those that were more talented because we were like, I'm going to be willing to do anything possible.
Yep.
So you're picking up the trash, you're asking the sales department questions,
I'm
marketing.
cleaning the vans, dude. I'm when I tell you I would show up at 8 a.m.
Yep.
And then I would do events, and then I'd go do my shift at the restaurant. And then when I'd get done,
Go back.
I asked Jesse too. I was like, hey, can I practice? Like, I just want to hear myself on the microphone and practice. And he goes, if you really want to, I'll show you how our voice tracking system works. He goes, just don't screw up and accidentally put something that goes on air, because if you do that, you're done.
Yeah.
And I said, 100%. I just want to hear myself.
Yeah.
So he showed me how to essentially voice track and make myself sound like I was doing a live show. So I would go into the voice tracking studios after all the DJs would go home, after the night guys, so around midnight, I'd go in, and I would just sit there for like 2-3 hours, and I would just intro songs and delete it. And then I would do a break, we got this going on, and delete it. And I just kept doing that. And then I started, once I started getting comfortable, I started recording those on cassette. And then I started creating this little cassette of me on air.
Yeah, you're real.
And then I was sitting outside of we were planning for this parade, and we were doing a float, and I remember we were like coloring Kanye's face, and the rock station was right next to me, and they were kind of making fun of us, and we went back and forth, and we're just whatever. And the program director peeks her head out, and she goes, hey. And her name was Dinah Laird, and she was the meanest person. She scared the crap out of me. Dude, the first day I worked there, she went in there and just dropped about 8,000 F-bombs. Yeah. And I'm thinking, I've never had a real job, so I'm thinking, you're not supposed to curse at work, like at school, right? No, she's dropping F-bombs and she was just scary. Yeah. And everybody there was afraid of this woman. And so I avoided her like the plague, even though I knew that was the person I needed to get to like me. And so she goes, hey, get the fuck in my office right now. And I'm like, oh crap, I guess I shouldn't have been making fun with these guys. And that's not their boss, so they just kind of like walked around the corner. And I walk in there and I sit down, and she looks at me and she goes, what's your name? And I said, Jose. And she said, I've seen you around, you're an intern, right? I said, yes, ma'am. How long have you been working here? And I said, a few months. It's actually my second semester. And she goes, okay. She goes, you're pretty funny. I like your quick wit. I said, thanks. Mm-hmm. And what's your goal here at the radio station? And I said, I wanna be on air. And she goes, and you've been here for almost 2 semesters, and not once have you told me you wanted to be on air. And I was like, no, ma'am, I have not. And she goes, you need to stop being a bitch.
Really?
And I was like, excuse me?
She called you out.
She called me out. She goes, you need to stop being a bitch. And if you want something, you better go get it. And I said, okay. And she goes, so you're interested in being on air? And I said, yeah. And she goes, okay. Have you been doing anything about it? And I was like, matter of fact, I have. And she goes, and that's when she went back, because she thought she was just going to dismiss me. And I was like, I've been coming in every night and working and putting the tape together. And she goes, no, you haven't. And she goes, you've been going into my recording studios without me knowing? And I was like, she goes, who told you that was okay?
And then you're like, no, I can't rat Jesse out.
So I'm like, I can't rat Jesse out. Like, he told me it was okay, but I'm not. And nobody knew I was doing that, right? Because he was, and so, and a lot of the times because you couldn't have access after hours if you're an intern. Yeah, so he would help me out. And she goes, who said it was okay? And I was like, I've been sneaking in. I would just wait for people to open the door, and I'd sneak in. One of the board ops, and I would sneak in. I'm sorry. And I'm now thinking I'm about to get fired.
Yeah, this is it.
And she goes, well, I guess you're not being a bitch. And I'm like, okay, cool. So obviously she liked that I took initiative, right? And this is where I learned sometimes it's okay to think outside the box, and it's okay to bend the rules, and it's okay to break them as long as you're trying to do something that's going to benefit you and the company. Yeah. And so she says, can I take a listen? And I said, I don't think I'm ready for you to listen. I was actually waiting until I thought I was ready to show you. And she goes, well, why don't you let me listen so I can tell you what you're doing wrong? And I said, okay. So I put in my tape, And boy, her body language was not good. It was bad. And even me listening, I was like,
Yeah, you haven't taken a breath.
This is awful. Yeah, and she's kind of nodding a couple times, and she stops it like probably 32 seconds in, just stops it. And I'm like, fuck. She looks at me and she goes, not ready. Not ready yet. I said, okay. She goes, keep working though. So I walked out. And she saw something, but she told me to keep working, so I kept doing it. And my internship was coming up, and I went back for the first time since I talked to her the first time, probably 2 weeks out before my internship ended. They were about to start the boy toy thing. Yeah. The guys with the tank tops and the thing. And I was like, okay, this might be my in to work at the building, so I'm going to go ask her. So I walked in, I said, Diana, my internship's about to be up, and I don't want to leave the station, and I don't have any more internships to take. Do you think I should be a boy toy? Would you hire me as a boy toy? And she goes, no. And that's a blow, because I'm thinking I'm a decent looking guy, right? I've been working out a little bit. I got traps.
Yeah. And to date, that's what you saw the pathways.
And that's what Jesse did. And I'm like, oh crap. Well, that's what Jesse did. So now I'm like, so what am I gonna do? And she goes, no, boy toys. Yeah. That's a bit, like, that's not you. And I said, what? And she goes, don't you have a girlfriend? And I said, oh, you do know about me? I said, yeah, I do have a girlfrind. And she goes, what's her name? And I said, Kinsey. And she goes, and she's the cute blonde girl. I guess she had seen her come by and bring me food before. And I said, yeah. And she goes, do you think your girlfriend's gonna like you going out there and flirting with girls and touching their body and putting tattoos on their skin and hugging on them and taking pictures with it? And I was like, no, but I literally will do anything to get on the radio. And she goes, okay, well, let me see what I can do. 2 hours later, I get a call saying, hey, we have a spot opening in the promotions department. Now I was getting hired. Yeah. My foot was not just in the door. Now I got a leg in the door.
This was within your first year.
This was, 2 internships, got hired. Yeah. And so I'm ahead of schedule, and I know this. And I'm watching people that were interns get on-air shifts. I'm watching it happen. I'm seeing people, they're actually getting chances. But at the same time, I'm seeing it as crap. When somebody gets a hold of these jobs, they stay. Yeah. And they don't let them go until they move up. And nobody was moving up into another job. And so I took the promotions job. And all you got to do is wait your turn. And so I kept going in. And I was working probably 80-hour weeks. 30 of those were paid because I was going in there, and I started helping the morning show. Yep. And I started doing for free. Yep. And I told them, I don't care. I don't care if you guys I will do it for free.
Such a key lesson, dude, to anybody listening. Like, go and do something, right? Yeah. As if you were getting paid $1 million to do it.
Break the rules.
Do it with excellence, even if it's free, because eventually the money's going to catch
right. And I knew that they're not supposed to do that. But I told them, I don't care. I'm showing up on my own. Right. I'm walking in here. Right. I'm answering your phones. Right. I'm going out and doing things for you.
And this time, did you have a on-air persona?
No, not yet.
You were Jose.
I was Jose.
Okay.
And so one day, Diana, I'm still doing tapes, and she goes, how's your tapes going? Yeah. And I said, you want to listen? She said, yeah. Go back in her office. And I play her the tape, and she listens. Same thing, bad body language, not good. And she goes, all right, here's the thing. I need someone to do a show from 2 to 6 in the morning on Wednesday. And I want to give you a shot. Are you interested? Or on Thursday, I'm sorry. And I was like, well, I got anatomy and physiology on Friday at like 8 o'clock, because I'm that idiot that takes classes early, because I wanted to make sure that I got it out of the way. And she goes, do you want this? Or do you want me to give it to one of the other 20 people that also say they want this? Yeah. And so I said, no, I'll do it. So I did my first ever shift, 2 to 6 in the morning, talking to truck drivers. Live. I would ask for people to call in, and the phone line with two would light up. Like, nobody's listening, dude. Not one person except security guards and truck drivers. But man, I had such a good time. I had such a blast. Yeah.
And everything else disappeared.
Everything disappeared. I remember I stayed up till 6. I went home, showered, and went to school. And I just couldn't concentrate because I was just thinking about my show. And I couldn't wait to go air check with her. Yeah. And so I air checked with her, and she heard some of this stuff, and she goes, actually, not too bad for your first live shift. You sounded nervous, which is normal, but I see something. And that was as soon as she said, I see something, my mind just, okay. Now my wife, my girlfriend, Kinsey, said it, and now this person that
Someone
I look up
believes in
to,
me.
somebody that I look up to believes in me. Wow. And she said, and I want you to do this shift a few more times. Do whatever you want on the show. It's yours. So I started doing bits. I started prank calling people. I started doing all this stuff to the point where the morning show heard it. And AJ, their street
talking
person,
about you.
their street person screwed up and got let go. And so they needed somebody. And he goes, hey, would you like your own street bit? Yeah. Weekly on my show, I'll give you 3 minutes instead of the 30 seconds you get to do on an overnight shift. And I said, yo, yes. Yeah. And he goes, cool, man. We just need to come up with a nickname for you. And I was like, whatever, I'll just go by Jose now. That's fine. Because I was going by Jose. Yeah. And I went in the studio and 50 Cent was playing. And I was talking to Jesse, and we start singing 50 Cent in the club, I think. And AJ walks back in, and I'm sitting there rapping, just going off rapping, and he's just standing there watching me. He goes, oh, you can rap? I was like, no, I can rap songs that I learned. And he goes, all right, 50 peso. And as soon as he said it, he kind of like had a light bulb moment. And I'm like, did you call me 50 peso because I'm Mexican? And he goes, yes, but that is your name.
50 peso.
50 peso, and that's where my radio name was born. So I started doing the morning show and loving it, and I was doing my night show at night, 2 to 6 in the morning, and then eventually my program director thought that I was good enough to where she pulled me in her office, and she said, hey, I want to give you a shot on Fridays, 7 o'clock till midnight.
Dang.
That's a good
key,
spot.
man. Yeah.
And I said, absolutely. And she goes, and I'll also give you Saturdays if you do well enough. And so I started doing those with a live mixed DJ, and I was
And there was no streaming back then.
Dude,
there was
no, man.
You were playing at parties, essentially.
MySpace had just come out, and I remember like watching my MySpace grow because I was talking to the high school kids and the college kids, and I was like, I was their party voice. I was doing a mix show at their parties.
And they were stoked to meet 50 peso.
Yeah, and I started getting love. I saw my MySpace numbers just go up. I think I got up to like 5,000 friends.
Yeah.
And that's when I started realizing, I'm like, okay, I got something.
Yeah.
And I go into Diana's office again to air check. You did it. You sound like a jock.
You're professional.
You sound like you belong on air. And I'm sitting there just puffing up, and these are the words that forever propelled my radio career. She goes, you are gonna make it in this industry. And I looked at her and I said, are you serious? And she goes, 100%. As soon as she said that, I knew that one day I would have a job at that station, and I was set. That was the moment. I didn't have it yet, but I knew it. I knew that was it. I knew I had it. And then about 3 months later, she got fired.
And so much of that is
just
dependent on who you know.
Everything, dude. Because I was still doing promotions. I was still doing on air. I was still doing the morning show, but now she was gone. And so now I'm like, oh my God, who are they going to bring in? Is he going to like us? And then they start scaring you and telling you, they're going to bring in somebody you don't know, and they always change everything up, and we're all getting fired. And they bring in this dude, Jimmy. And I don't mind calling his name out because he also propelled me, but not in a good way. Yeah. Because he came in, and he was a very old school, just spit. You got to like spit your words out. You know, I was more of a conversational type jock, the way I do my show now. I talk to you. Yeah. And I remember my cadence was Channel 933, San Diego's #1 hit music station. What's up, it's 50 peso. Here's what's going on this weekend. Let's check it out. Margarita Rocks is going on, blah, blah, blah. That's how I like to talk. Yeah. And he would air check me and go, you're doing it wrong. You're supposed to do it like this. Channel 933, San Diego's #1 hit music station. Margarita Rocks is happening this weekend. Yeah. Stop by 8 to 10 p.m. Get yourself a beer. And he does these breaks for me, and I'm sitting there going like, bro, in my head, I would flip that station.
No, it's like a strip club DJ.
Like, right? Like,
ladies and gentlemen.
Like, I'm sitting there going like, as a 21-year-old who thinks he's kind of cool and in touch with what's going on out there.
Yep, he was disconnected.
I was like, you are not hitting the spots, bro. Like, that's not what's up. Yeah. And I wouldn't listen to him. Yeah. And I would continue to do my show the way it was doing and the way I had been doing it. And it was successful at that point. And he finally had enough, and he pulled me in his office after an air check, and he goes, you're not listening to a single word that I'm telling you. And I said, I'm listening, Jimmy, it's just not me. And he goes, and at that time, Jesse was still there, and he had gotten a job in LA at Kiss FM as weekends, which was, dude, it was like getting called up to the majors, right?
Yeah.
Like, Jesse was the golden child in San Diego now because he was working in LA. Yeah. And that's who I actually modeled my delivery after, the conversational. Yep. And so he goes, you're not listening to me. You're not coachable, dude. And I said, what do you mean I'm not coachable? I've never in my entire life of sports or working ever been told.
I didn't even speak English when I came.
Yeah, in fact, if anything, everybody tells me how coachable I am. Yeah. That's that's what I pride myself in. And so I said that to him. I was like, Jimmy, I am extremely coachable. I just know myself. And he goes, the complete opposite of what Diana told me. He looks at me and he goes,
"You'll never make it.
You're not gonna make it." He goes, his exact words were, "You're always gonna be a weekend jock." I said, okay. So I'm telling you, I'm your swing guy. I'm the guy that's filling in for your night guy every time. I'm filling in. I'm basically your night guy at this point. Yep. And I fill in for your afternoon person, and I fill in for your midday person all the time. So I'm basically a swing guy. I'm switching all the time, but I'm gonna be a weekend guy. And I remember looking at him and going, all right, fair enough, bro. We had our concert that weekend, our station concert. And I remember that I just didn't want to go because that just, it killed me. Yeah. And I was just unmotivated. So my next couple shows sucked. I just didn't feel it anymore. I was like, that's it, man. Sure. This guy's just going to kill my career. I don't know what to do about it. I don't have any connections. Yeah. And I remember we had our concert and my AJ came up to me and he goes, hey, we're going to introduce you as part of the on-air staff. And it was my first time. And I'm like, I'm 23 now, so this is now a few years into my career, and I'm finally getting introduced on stage. So after 3 years of working my butt off, I'm finally and being on air all the time and growing. And I think I had the most friends on MySpace at the station besides Jesse, and I'm the weekend guy. Yeah. And so I remember we go up on stage and they introduce the morning show, AJ's Playhouse. Yeah. Boy Toy Jesse, he gets a big. Then afternoon, Cha-Cha, yeah. And then, hey, he's the night guy, yeah. He gets pretty cool. And then they start announcing the weekend people. Nardo, yeah. So-and-so, yeah. And 50 peso, I was the last one, and 50 peso. And I remember thinking, I'm like, is it just loud to me because it's just they said my name and I just think it sounds cool?
Yeah.
And then there was somebody behind me, and then they announced, I think maybe I have Calvin or something. And they announced, and then it went back down to a normal clap. And I'm like, wait, that went back down to a normal clap. Like, they clapped really loud for me. I was like, no, man, that's not, no.
Yeah,
I can't get in my head like that, no way. And I remember walking off stage, and Jesse stops and turns around, and he goes, dude, bro, you got the loudest cheer, homie. And I was like, that wasn't in my head. And he goes, no, bro, like, you legit got the loudest cheer. Like there was girls in the front row that were acting like you were a freaking NSYNC member, and I remember going like, what? Yep. And Jesse was always a good support system, and he always was.
He saw something.
He was good about giving me the right amount of compliments, but also being critical of me, and that was one of those moments where he realized, no, you need to know just your value, because I had told him how Jimmy's conversation had gone. Yep. That night, I got home. And Kinsey's sitting there with me, and she even said it. She goes, your cheer was the loudest. And I said, well, I need to get out of here then. And I got online and I started looking for jobs. Dang. And I actually had opened my email that night, and this is what propelled me to look for jobs. And there was a program director from Sacramento. Okay. And she hit me up and she goes, hey, I used to compete against you guys at 98.8 or whatever, 98.1, one of the stations out there. That had flipped, and she had moved up there, and she goes, I remember just how people talked about you. Do you want to come up and work for my hip-hop station? And I said, yeah, I'm interested. I'm down. She goes, all right, I'll send you a flight information tomorrow. And they were going to fly me to Sacramento. But I still got online, and I saw this ad and I told myself, I'm going to go work for a big market. New York, LA, Dallas, Philadelphia, Houston, the top 10 markets. I'm looking at all of them. And so I went in to All Access, which is a radio website, and there was a job description for Dallas. I'm like, oh, that's top 10. Perfect. What is it? Morning show producer, Kidd Kraddick Morning Show. Or Kidd Kraddick in the morning. I had no idea who Kidd Kraddick was. Yeah. Zero. And I go up to Sacramento, I audition, it goes well, and I just couldn't stop thinking about Dallas. And I couldn't focus out there. I had an awful audition in Sacramento, and so I come back home, and that whole week I just can't sleep. All I'm thinking about is going to Dallas. And so I show up here in Dallas, first time in Dallas. And I remember first thing I saw was the the skyline. And I remember just falling in love. I wanted a city with a cool skyline, because San Diego has a cool one.
Definitely.
Sacramento, sorry, bro, you don't have one. And so I remember feeling that in Sacramento. I just didn't feel like that was home. And I remember feeling that here.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can mess with Dallas. This is cool. I mean, it's kind of spread and flat. There's no mountains, but I like the skyline. Yeah. And I like it a lot. And we went out to some sushi restaurant, and I sat down with Steve Scott. He's the one that was watching me.
Yep.
And Kidd walks in with a Mexican dude. It's odd. And he goes, that was my friend, Eddie, or something. And he goes, and I was like, hey, what's up, man? And he starts speaking to me in Spanish. And I'm like, ¿cómo estás? Estoy bien. And we're just having a conversation in Spanish, and Kidd's just sitting there. And he, once we stopped talking, he goes, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't really believe you were Mexican.
Come on.
I swear.
Come on.
Like, Kidd was just
checking you.
He was checking me. He goes, there's a lot of people that have been trying because they heard I want a Hispanic person, and they look it, but they're not it. Yeah. And then he goes, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Mexico City. He goes, you're really Mexican? And I said, yeah, here's my driver's license, bro. Like, my name's not just Jose. Like, my radio name's 50 peso because I'm Mexican. Show him my driver's license. He's laughing. He's like, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that you're real, man. I want the one thing I cannot stand are fake people. And I was like, well, funny you say that because I'm the same way. And he goes, cool, man. Well, we're gonna do just fine. Went in, auditioned with them.
Knocked it out of the park?
I didn't feel like I knocked it out of the park, if I'm honest with you. I didn't walk away completely confident that I got the job. Yeah. I remember feeling good, but not confident. Yeah. And I went back to San Diego, and Jimmy, first thing, I go back to work, calls me in his office, and he goes, how'd he go? And I was like, it was good. Was he nice? He's asking me, like, fangirling. I'm like, yeah. And, like, all these people want to know about Kidd Kraddick. I'm like, yeah, he was a really cool dude, kind of small, but, like, just a dude. Yep. Cool. Did you get the job? I haven't heard back. And that became the bit for about the next month. Every day I'd show up. Hey, did you hear from Kidd Kraddick? Did you hear from Kidd Kraddick? No. Did you hear from Kidd Kraddick? No. Till I show up to work one day. And I get told, Jim Richards wants to see you, and he was like the big boss there, like he was running the show of the stations. And I was like, oh, I've actually never met with Jim Richards. I've seen him, I talked to him, but okay. I walk in, and he looks at me, and he goes, hey, I got a call from Patrick Davis, the program director in Dallas. He said they want to fax over a contract for the Kidd Kraddick in the morning show. And I said, I'm like, wait, I got the job? And he goes, yeah, they wanted to go through me, of course, and make sure everything was cool and give me first dibs. And he goes, is there anything I can do to keep you here? Because now, like, obviously, now I have equity.
Leverage,
now I have
leverage.
And he goes, is there anything I can do to keep you here in our family? And I was like, well, it's not you. I just don't think Jimmy likes me. I don't think he wants me here. And he goes, he doesn't? I said, I don't. He told me I was not going to make it, and I was only going to be a weekend jock. And honestly, Jim, the only reason I did this and went looking for this is because he said that. And I wanted to prove him wrong. And I did. Boom. And I said, and unless you can pay me as much, and the contract came in, and I was like, I'll stay if you pay me that much, and you can promise me the first opening. The first opening on Channel 933, whether it's nights, afternoon, whatever it is, but I want that. In writing, and I want to make that much money. Yep. And he goes, okay, let me talk to Jimmy. And he pulls Jimmy into the office, and he tells him what I said, and Jimmy goes, no, I don't see it. I don't see him succeeding on our station. Yeah. And I'm sitting there going, did you not hear the cheers? Do you not see my social media following? Yep. Do you not see that people show up just to say what's up after my show and, like, shake hands? Yep. Like, you don't see that. Yep. And so that's the moment I looked at Jim, and I said, I'm ready to sign my contract and fax it back.
That was it.
And that was it.
And then you came.
And I got the job.
Dude, so there's so much.
That was the longest story ever, wasn't it?
No, dude. Thank you, Jimmy, on behalf of the entire Chavez family and myself as my friend here. And here's the thing, man. There's a couple different. I think we need to sit down again for another chunk because now we've got the table set. And really, I want to know because again, your relationship with Kidd, what catapulted you, so much of losing Kidd that you've done, and in such an amazing tribute to what he did for you and what he's taught you. Yeah. I mean, I know, and I've been with you on the anniversary of Kidd's passing before, and that still is hard for you.
Yeah.
Right. And I know how much that dude, still today, like you don't pass a day without thinking about that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have my own Jimmy. When I quit baseball my freshman year, my coach, who I was better at baseball than football, and he told me that I'd never make it in football and I was making the biggest mistake of my life. And I'd still, I know exactly, that's the chip on the shoulder.
I still think about it.
Thank you, right? Like that's the part that I think people, and so somebody's throwing shade, somebody's throwing salt in your game, somebody is pissing on your Cheerios, whatever you want to say. Right now, somebody is telling you why your dreams are unattainable, right? And you are proof of so much, and done so in a way that's crafting literally a path. I mean, dude, and we don't have to go into all this, but you get offers all the time that try to take you to the next echelon because you've consistently built out your persona, and I got to compliment you on this. Dude, when you walk through the streets of Dallas or Fort Worth, or we're in New Orleans, or we're in Florida, or whatever, people lose it when they see you. Oh my God, and Kinsey, because you guys have such a cool, real persona, authenticity, what Kidd stood for.
Right.
And when people stop and they break neck and they ask for that picture, I've always been impressed with you. Because I've played with ballers and guys that they do the photo and they, and I'm not saying it's not sometimes interrupting your family time, but you always take time to make somebody feel special. And I think had you not had the pathway of having to overcome so much adversity, you would have never had the true gratitude for the gift that you have and the platform and the way that you create an impact. I mean, the things that you've done.
Thanks, man.
I remember the first time you came to the gym, right? So the reason I started this foundation is Travis Mills, right? Quadruple amputee, who knew you before I knew you.
He told me about you. Yeah,
Right.
He said he was coming to your gym. And I looked you up on Twitter. I was like, who's this fool?
Right. And then we end up playing in a celebrity flag football game together. We still have the best Hail Mary.
Connection.
Won it. Then we found out we had to play again. We were old and out of shape.
We got cramps, so that doesn't count for real.
But dude, like those are the occurrences, right? Like, and I think that if we go back to the wave that is life, there's gonna be things outside of your circumstance when the new leadership came in, right? And Jimmy was also the thing that catapulted you to get to Kidd.
Yeah, in a way I do thank him for it. I don't think he meant to motivate me the way he did. I think he just wanted a certain type of personality,
Sure.
and I wasn't that for him. And you know what? That's the cool thing about life. You don't have to mesh with everyone. You don't have to work well with everyone. You just have to realize it and find a way to find your niche and find your spot where you're supposed to be.
And a lot of those differences or disadvantages maybe perceivably in like just the world are actually the unique factors of your story.
Yeah.
And if you actually own them, they become something that elevates your game.
Yeah.
Right? And okay, so I think this is cool because look, what you do on air, the conversations that you have, people can't help but fall in love with you, the radio, the way that you do what you do, and how connected and real they feel. They know you, man. And that's such a cool piece. But if you were gonna record like 2 minutes on the clock, and your kids, right, Chloe, Kaysen, Kinsey, anybody that's ever heard you on air, if you were gonna leave, I think of Endgame, Avengers, right, where it opens with Tony Stark looking into the helmet and recording this thing, thinking that's it.
I love you 3000.
What for you, if you had 2 minutes on the clock, like what is something, you've heard backstory, we're gonna bring it to current, but what would that 2 minute, that last talk be?
I'd want to tell them, don't let anything stop you. Don't let what other people say or their words get in the way of what your goals are. And live your life for your future generations. Live for your kids.
Love you, dude.
That's all it is.
Thanks, bro. Thank you.